Hello and welcome to another modelling video. This is Alan from the Man at YouTube with another modelling video. Today we'll be doing a build review unboxing of the high grade Guntank early type HGUC kit, in fact, from the OVA Gundam The Origins. This model is a part of the Gunpla Builders Australia Guntank group build, retailing at about 1700 yen, a little over $20, and being released a little more than a year from the time that I've built it. For this challenge, I'm deciding to go fairly out of the box. It does have that lovely MSV look to it, a lot of interesting gimmicks, though definitely going to spank out the historical rust, grime, weathered look using a variety of weathering techniques inspired by this picture and others like it. Being a tank, I'm always fairly worried about the treads, and being quite big for a high grade, I was greeted with 7 sets of runners, polycaps, clear bits, and to my absolute surprise, the tracks are practically in very few parts. They just glue directly together and clip into place with outer wheel covers. Very clever, very quick cleanup. Bit of sanding is required to remove the flash off the tracks, though very quick and easy. The rest of the build is quite strategic, not much in the way of seam lines. Nubs are easy enough to remove, well fitting. After painting, there is some problems with polycaps and joints and ball joints. They can easily be fixed by being drilled out and a brass rod inserted, especially for the side of the tracks and head. Highly recommend. But the gimmick of ball joints and extender arms sticking out from either side of the tracks, giving it some sort of leg-like articulation and posability with the tank tracks, is absolutely brilliant with inner detail. Did slightly take advantage of it. Could have been more dynamic, but wasn't trying to overdo it. Pretty fun to play with, very interesting to look at. The tracks also have separatable wheels for ease in painting if you want to go for the whole black outer wheel rim look. Once assembled, proportion wise, absolutely clever. Can't talk enough about the colour separation. The little guns for the machine gun hands pop out. The barrel's got all sorts of interesting articulation with pistons moving and whatnot. Really, they definitely have tank modelers in mind when building this, and if people are being introduced to tanks, they're given quite a sweet and rewarding experience if they wish to delve in further. Modifications I did was flat rivets throughout the body using a syringe and PVA glue for very subtle detail, and fake leather with brass studded pattern around the arms just to give extra bulk if it was to be used as a flat melee weapon or defense form for close combat. At a $2 shop, I bought the bottom lid or tray for a pot plant, flipped it upside down and applied cardboard and wood putty to create a sloping hill effect. Inserted the tracks into the putty to make track marks. This thing is many hundreds of tons and would definitely sink a bit. A bit of wood chucks for some sort of Roman-esque ruins. Covered the whole thing in PVA glue, sand, many different types of sand, aiming for a desert, neatened it up a bit with milliput. Hit it with rattle can primer and had a bit of a ball airbrushing it. For a change, the build was very quick. The painting is where most of the work has gone into, and the entirety of the base of the kit was primed using an experimental blend of SMS, the Scale Modeler Supply Instant Apply Primer. It was very quick to dry, a bit dark, ever so slightest texture which you could see visually. You can't really detect it with paint over it. The whole kit was broken down into parts mounted on skewers, as seen in earlier photos, and airbrushed in many different brands of lacquers, including Mr. Colour and SMS. The salt weathering method was used, as well as different shaded and colours areas among the wheels and throughout the body for effect. Everything was top coated in Future Floor for the weathering stage. I'm a believer for interesting and intense weathering for a realistic look, and so you can't visually easily spot out just a pin wash or pigment, is to mix and blend as many type of weathering methods and attempt it subtly. The paint was fairly extreme in its application, but this was to allow for all the other layers that I was going to apply. First, using paint, I dusted on black soot around the guns, engines, and any sort of exhaust, as well as black to shade under areas around the torso and under the barrel. There's also some sand shading within the wheel wells paint wise. After the paint, everything was gloss coated, and I used about 3 or 4 different sludge washes, starting with black, just to pick out all the panel lines, and then I used heavier coats of different browns and rusts just to blend in the paint contrast intensity. Once this dried up, and the majority of the washes, which was about 3-4 colours, being oils, I applied SMS matte, which dulled everything down beautifully, not the slightest sheen, in about 3-4 coats, with a tiny coat of Tamir matte to allow pigment to attach. And using MIG production pigment, I put large swats of rust, browns, red pigment in various strategic spots, and using the fixative, blended it in and washed it across the body with a wide brush to create the effect of streaks and discoloration through rust. Before this, for the first time, I attempted dot filtering. I got some oil paints, dotted them in strategic places, and using enamel thinner, spreaded it out to get streaks such as rain marks. Didn't quite work out, but with some points that had rust and spreading that out, that had some interesting rain marks in only certain locations. It was also covered up with other weathering methods, but it's something I'm going to work on further. Once the rust layer dried, I applied strategically about 4 or 5 different shades and colours of sand and browns around the wheels, the tank tracks, and the lower hull, to give it something like a sandstorm has hit it and some sand is still stuck and whatnot. Even though a centimetre or less is the size of a human, a structure that big will collect a lot of sand, in my opinion, and it's just gradual and gradient from very little higher up and quite intense, especially in the wheels and tank tracks where it's going to be buried, collect and dig up a heap of sand. The effect was quite enjoyable and effective. I like it, and was again sealed with a fixative. Last step was using pastels or weathering pencils to highlight edges and corners to give a little bit of contrast and detail and make panels stand out on their own. A lot of whites, light greys, or completely contrasting colours to whatever their place, just to give everything a bit more definition and borders, because it is an animated or drawn item that would have a dark outline, lighter fill interior. Everything was finished off with a final coat of SMS lacquer matte clear. I absolutely love the stuff. It really does kill all sheens and does not frost up. The camera was painted with gloss nail polish silver with a candy light blue with very, very chunky glitter in it, and some very glittery nail polish in the little camera lenses in the head, followed by a clear coat. This gave the illusion of broken glass in the camera head of the mobile suit. Wasn't intentional, but really liked it. This concludes my rough build of the Guntank. It was a very, very quick project. A lot of it was done on the road, assembled at Model Expo and painted and weathered at club meets and around the bout. Very little of it done at home except for the diorama that was airbrushed and built at home, but that was only a very small handful of hours. The whole project was fun, really dig the Guntank. Being a tank group build in the Gundam group, I felt that I sort of had to jump in and contribute and enjoy it. It's a very, very cool kit. I bought it when it came out originally for the group build and had to wait for a year for it to occur. That's Ghost of Xeon's fault, of course, but it's nor here nor there. Thank you very much for watching, and as always, until next time, stay tuned for more tutorials, reviews, and interesting content. See ya!